What's up, Rockstars? Today I'm bringing you the Skirmish board game cage match. This is going to be Mythic Battles, because Ragnarok is on Kickstarter right now. This is going to be Tenaris or Arena, because you can still late pledge that. And this is going to be Limbo Eternal War, because that Kickstarter is coming very soon. So, let's go ahead and figure out which one is right for you, the differences, what's similar, all that right now. Now, as always, I want to start out by thanking my patrons and YouTube members. It is through their financial support that this channel is possible. When I'm talking about all these games, I back a lot of these games every month. I show you, I'm spending money with you guys. I'm putting in the effort. I buy cameras like this. That is all thanks to them because I get no money from these game developers. They do not pay me, so that my opinion in this video is mine and not my wallet's. If you appreciate that level of honesty in this industry and the industry critiques that I provide, there is a link down below if you can. If not though, that's fine. A like, a subscribe, a comment, all those things help. I'll greatly appreciate it, and I love chatting with you guys anyway, and it's good to know that these videos are helpful. So if you find this video helpful, hit that like button. Really, it is appreciated. Alright, let's go ahead and get into it. Alright, now obviously there are some other fantastic skirmish games out there. For instance, I personally love Hate by Command, but you can't really get that right now. And I wanted to kind of keep this relevant to you guys based off of what's coming in like a month or two and what you can back right now and actually put money towards right now. So if you're kind of interested in skirmish board games, or maybe you're just trying to decide between the three or trying to figure out more about all three so that you can make a good decision for you on what you will enjoy, then this video is for you. Now, all I can do is provide some information. You decide what's important, of course. Speaking of which, I'm going to be going over what's similar, I'm going to be going over what's different, and then which one might be right for you, or multiple. So let's start with what is the same. Now, obviously, they are all three skirmish board games, right? But they also all have army building involved in them, where you can actually kind of pick your team and, you know, kind of craft your own army or units, or, you know, whatever your team, whatever you want to call it. Not all skirmish board games support that, but this one certainly does. They can also all handle more than 2 players, so there are some games that pretty much are only 2-player, like Hate, for instance, can do more, but 95% of the time, 98% of the time, you're going to be 1 versus 1. And so these all do 2, they do 3, they do 4, they handle that quite well. Another cool thing that all of these games have is that they all actually have units with special abilities, often 2 or more. You know, like 2 is almost the minimum here. There are exceptions, like especially in Mythic Battles, there are some that only have like 1. But for the most part, they all have 2 or more that you can pick from, that you can look to and see, okay, well, this unit does this specifically and uniquely, and this does this one specifically and uniquely. And so that kind of goes into that army building thing, but it also just makes each unit really, really unique. So when you look at the amount of units, each one kind of stands on its own. Let's see, they also all have quick combat resolution. I talked about that in my Mythic Battles Ragnarok review. By the way, if you haven't seen that, there is a link down below to that, so you can take a look at that, because that's on Kickstarter right now. In fact, there's a link to Tenaris that you can late pledge, and there is a link to the Kickstarter for Ragnarok down below in the description as well for your convenience. I will come back to this video if I remember and add the link to the next Limbo Eternal War 1.5, or whatever they're calling that one, that's going to be coming out here soon. And obviously they're all fantasy based. That is unfortunate, but also not. Fantasy is definitely the most popular. It's the most common theme there. And I think they all excel at it in different ways, of course. And some are a little bit more maybe perhaps unique than others, but we'll talk about that maybe in differences more than similarities. Either way, they're all, like, none of them are sci-fi or anything like that, so that's not really a decision point for you to be able to make. That also means that they'd all work well for D&D minis, whether it's using them for D&D or subbing them into other board games. In fact, Mythic Battles inherently has Conan, crossover, right, where they could be used in the Conan game, whether it's Pantheon or Ragnarok. They both work that way. So these are minis that you can use a lot if you so desire. And lastly, Mythic Battles and Arena, not Limbo, but both of those offer some campaign play as well. But I'll talk more about that in the differences. But suffice it to say, they share that in common. All right, speaking of differences, let's go on and talk about differences. Now, I'm going to make sure I'm going to keep looking at my notes here. And by the way, when I say arena, I mean Arena, the contest, or Tenaris Adventures. Either one. I say arena because that's what I was used to calling it when it was first a thing. I think now most people are familiar with Tenaris, but I'm still going to use arena because if I say Tenaris, I'm going to slip and say arena then, and then I'm saying two different things for the same thing. I mean that whole game system, right? Both work here. Either way, arena has co-op. So none of the others have co-op. Mythic Battles Pantheon does not have co-op. It does in the sense that you can do a 2v2 where there's a team-based thing, but I mean pure co-op when you're fighting against an AI or the game and not another person. And neither Limbo or Mythic Battles support that. That is an arena-only thing. So if that is something you'd like to have, then obviously Arena's looking pretty good for you there. Additionally, Arena has a boss battler. So none of the others really have a boss battler too. You can get kind of close to that in Mythic Battles, where you can have somebody be a Titan and then the other people will be gods, but that's not the same thing, like, at all. So there's that as well. Arena also has Dragon versus Dragon. Now that's just Skirmish using only dragons, but I felt it's important because it's Dragon versus Dragon, and that's pretty darn cool, right? So, I mean, who doesn't want to do that? Oh, also in Arena, you never miss. And so out of all of them, they all have dice of some form or another and some kind of randomness. And Arena does too, but even if you lose the roll, you still do a base version of your attacks. So you're still doing damage or you're still doing effects or whatever it might be. You never actually miss. You just don't hit as strong, if that makes sense. So that definitely sets it apart as well. For Limbo Eternal War, it has the deepest army building by far. You pick a divinity. It's all point based. So you pick a divinity. You pick 20 unique kind of cards that you can play. Kind of like a card hand abilities. You can also pick gear or upgrades for units, and then of course you can pick your units as well. And additionally, they have interplay between them, so they might all be part of a certain faction. And so if this troop has an ability that happens if this other unit has something, and none of the others have that. They all are kind of standalone units when you're picking an army. So for Arena and Mythic Battles, you're picking them, but they kind of stand alone. They might work together in kind of a meta way, but not inherently where it's like on the thing it says, hey, by the way, if that person dies, they get a buff. Right? Or if everybody belongs to this and you have this buff, or this happens when, this unit is close to another unit of this kind. Like, that isn't really so much of a thing. A Mythic Battles gets kind of close with like a close protection and all that, but it's very generic. It's not the same thing. Definitely it's a deeper army building experience for Limbo Eternal War by far, actually. There's quite a bit. So you pick your units, you pick your gear and upgrades, you pick your unique abilities and your divinity, and all of that adds together to make your army. And you could go everything from, have a whole, almost no troops at all and have just a few expensive guys that you then upgraded with gear, or maybe some cheap guys that then you upgraded with gear, and so they're actually not that bad anymore. Or perhaps you don't do any gear at all and you just get as many units as possible. There's a lot of variety you can do there. Having that gear and then having the interplay between factions really adds a lot of oomph to that. It's a lot closer to maybe more traditional, like a deck building, Magic the Gathering style kind of theory crafting you can do for the different armies you can field through there. Limbo also has a shared resource called Fate. Essentially, if you ever want to do one of your special moves, often you have to spend Fate, and by spending it, you give it to your opponent. And so there's a unique mechanic there where you're having to say, I would like to do this, but I don't want you to be able to do that. So you have to weigh what you can do with it versus what I can do with it and see if I still feel like I'm out in the advantage. And none of the other systems have that. That's definitely a Limbo only thing. And I'll talk more about that on what's right for you. Additionally, Limbo has the best minis. There's no contest. In fact, I have a few here. I can kind of show you, but they are definitely stand out by a lot. So there's one. Here's another one. These are just two I painted. There's so many more, and in fact, there's some cooler ones too. But as you can see, the Limbo minis are beyond anything Mythic Battles is offering, beyond anything Arena's offering, beyond anything really any other board game is offering. I think the closest you can get is if you do a Games Workshop board game. That's about as close as you can get to Limbo. And even then, I think Limbo beats on the style thing because they do a lot more basing and stuff like that where they can do some unique sculpts and poses and whatnot. So, like, suffice it to say, Limbo has amazing minis. And that's really important for a skirmish game, right? When you're picking your units, you want your units to be cool. They all have good minis, right? They all have fantastic minis, but Limbo's, just from sculpt design, beats it out of the park, in my opinion. So there's that as well. Mythic Battles Pantheon and Mythic Battles Ragnarok, and eventually whatever the Egyptian one is, they have a lot of card-driven mechanics in their game. So the game is a lot more card-driven. You use cards to activate your units. You have Art of War cards, which can be used to draw cards or look up a specific card or activate a second unit or pay for an ability or all this kind of stuff. There's a lot of card play in there. There's a lot of abilities that allow you to draw cards. There's stuff like Leader that allows you to go look for a troop if you're near a troop and then be able to activate them. And if you don't have the card, you can't activate them. Typically, unless there's a skill or something that maybe allows you to. So, it's a lot more card driven than both the other ones by far, like by a lot. There's a little bit of card play in Limbo, and there is almost none in Arena. So, that is something you need to. If you like card play, that might be something you're interested in. Also, Mythic Battles, has the largest selection of units, again, by far, even including Daenerys. Now that Ragnarok is launching, right? But Pantheon is huge. There are so many units, and each one's unique. And I mean, then you add in the troops and the expansion and all that. There are a ton of options. While Limbo is definitely the deepest crafting, they have the least amount of options. Though there is another Kickstarter coming, and so I'm assuming they'll add a lot more units too. So that'll kind of help in that area. But definitely a ton of different units to pick from in Mythic Battles. They are the clear winner here. If you want options, they have it. And then some. And then more on top of that. Additionally, Mythic Battles has the largest selection of maps. Again, when you're playing a skirmish game, you pick a map and you go, and you fight each other. And Mythic Battles, again, wins that as long as you get the expansions and all that kind of stuff. They have a ton of maps. Each one's double-sided. You get like 4 in just the core pledge plus stretch goals, and then you get another one in each big box expansion, and then there's another one you can purchase, and then there's Ragnarok adding more now as well, and there's a lot of different maps you can do. Arena has some customization in their map. Though Mythic Battles Ragnarok's adding a little bit of that too, where you can like place forests and stuff like that. But Arena, you can be like, I want this lava pit here, and I want this wall here, and I want this here. So definitely customizable in that sense, but a lot of playing skirmish games is that kind of thematic feel of fighting on a mountaintop or fighting in a dungeon or in an arena or, whatever it might be in a thick forest or, some crazy alien sci-fi landscape or the city ruins or what. Again, there are a ton of options in the desert. You could keep going and going and going. And of course the different map layouts matter too, but it's not just map layout. Arena's definitely, I think, the second in this, and with the Limbo having one map plus a underground map that is dynamic that you can kind of make however you want. But that's really it. So definitely the clear loser there is Limbo, and then I think the clear winner here is Mythic Battles, followed by Arena. Either one will do you well. One has a little bit more visual variety. One has an almost infinite amount of layout variety, just because you can place the stuff yourself. So that's really all the different things I wanted to note. Again, I want to make this video kind of quick. I wanted to make it to where you could get your information and go. So what's right for who? What are these games for? Like, I'm just going to tell you kind of what I think might fit you guys, depending on your tastes. And then, of course, you can take all the info I've said. And by the way, I've reviewed Arena as well. I'll go and link that too. So you can see the Arena review, see the Ragnarok review. I also reviewed a Limbo Eternal War. So I'll go into all 3. You'll have all 3 there in case you want to watch a review of them. They all actually play differently, so it's totally fine to own them all. They all kind of fit different desires or different moods and stuff like that. I own all 3 happily, and I think there's plenty of room on the shelf for, Mythic Battles takes a lot of room on the shelf, and it looks like Daenerys is gonna give it a run for its money. But Arena or Limbo doesn't take a lot of space yet. Either way, like, don't think you can only back one or that one would replace another necessarily. Again, between the card combat and not missing on one and being able to do a campaign on another. And then, there's a lot of variety there, right? So anyway, with that in mind, if you like to theory craft an army, and I already kind of said this, then you definitely want to hold out probably for Limbo. You might want to check out Mythic Battles. Those are kind of the two big ones there. Arena, you can put your units together and you can do all that stuff. It's not a slouch at all. You can definitely theory craft there. I personally do it. I love theory crafting different builds and armies and tactics and stuff like that. I think what sets Limbo apart, obviously I kind of already talked about that, is the interplay between units is big there. The fact that there are like different factions that play off of each other or play into each other, or reactions based off of other units or even named units and stuff like that. Like, hey, if you have a Rose Knight captain and a Rose Knight troop, well, obviously they're going to interact with each other in very specific ways. So, stuff like that, right? And then you have the equipment and, all that jazz as well. Plus, you have all of the skills on each one, kind of like Mythic Battles. The reason Mythic Battles is up there is because of the selection choice. There's a ton, but also because their abilities that they have are typically not game breaking, but they allow you to do unique things. Like you can now teleport, or you can spawn different things, or you can, make up these essentially obstructions that also buff you, or, there's a lot of different skills in Limbo and a lot of different skills in Mythic Battles. And whereas the skills in Arena typically are within the confines of the game. You're not doing anything crazy like kind of what I just mentioned. You're for the most part, right? There's a few exceptions, but for the most part, their unique abilities are just like, oh, that's a cool, spin attack that attacks everybody around and also knocks them back. Like that's an ability, but it's not something unique only to them where nobody else is doing knockbacks or multi-unit attacks, right? As opposed to some of the other stuff that the other two do. So army building, Limbo number 1, followed by Mythic Battles as a number 2. Though all three, again, you can have fun with that. But definitely, I think those are the two winners there. Are you adverse to randomness? If you don't like randomness in your skirmish games, then Arena is your pick. I guess. Now there's still a roll die with Arena. So with Arena, you have to essentially a 2-hit. And you have to roll and 20-sided die and get that 2-hit. And if you got higher than that or that, then you did your thing and you do your special. If you got lower, you do your default. Now your default's still going to do damage. It still might even knock them back. It still might allow you to draw a card or whatever it might do, right? It just won't do it as well as what you'd want to do. And sometimes you weren't wanting to do the damage necessarily. You were just wanting to get the draw cards and now you don't get it. But either way, you're just hitting less. You're never missing. And so it's a lot more deterministic in that sense. So in fact, if you like puzzles, Arena is also probably your pick because of that deterministic value of it. And because you're still just doing one person and they can do like one or two things and then it's the next person and stuff like that. It's a lot closer like a chess-like game. And I don't mean that as an April Fool's joke. I mean that like in a serious way. Like it's very much you trying to figure out the optimal move set for you. Against their optimal moveset and then reacting to them or trying to make it to where they can't react or react as well or whatever it is. It's much more puzzle-like, as opposed to kind of slapstick, more Amerithrash style kind of, I'm going to chuck dice and I'm going to, do this and do that and whatnot. There's strategy in all of them, of course, but that one is a lot, because of the deterministic, it's a lot more for sure, like, I'm going to do 18 damage, they're going to only have 7 left, or whatever it might be, and then that'll flip it and I'll be able to do my special there. That's probably your pick there. If you like card play, Mythic Battles, I already kind of mentioned that. The Art of War card, you have abilities like Leader that allow you to go search for a card. You have people like Agamemnon who allow you to activate a third person, and so you can you have a hand of cards that you're kind of dealing with. Again, Limbo has a little bit of that, but it's very light compared to everything you can do in Mythic Battles. Even if you run out and you need to draw a card and you can't draw anymore, everybody shuffles their discard pile, and now everybody who had a deck now goes into their hand, right? Well, that's a huge thing. You gotta watch out for that. If you add too many cards, because cards activate, if you have too many units with so many cards, I mean, that's cool, you got those units, but you're a lot less likely to have the card you want to play because you have so many others that you could be drawing from, right? So there's more filler there. It's kind of like making a Magic deck of 300 versus 60, right? Like you might have a whole bunch of cool cards, but if you're looking for that one card, you're less likely to draw it now, right? Similar kind of thing there. So there's a lot of card play in Mythic Battles. Definitely card play, Skirmish, Mythic Battles is your pick out of this group, right? There's other stuff like Super Fantasy Brawl and whatnot, but I wanted to pick these specifically because I feel like these are kind of the closest together right? When it comes to weight and price and style and that kind of stuff. So let's see, if you like trade-offs, then Limbo with that fate mechanic is huge. I talk often in my reviews about the core mechanic of a game, right? Which is what you're doing a lot or what you're spending the most thought on. It can be a variety of things, and a variety of things can be the core of something, right? If you're doing something every single turn, that's a core mechanic. It better be solid, right? I talked about that with like the noise roll in Reichbusters. That's what you do the most often in that game. So, and if it's not fun, then the most often thing you're doing in the game is not fun, right? For Limbo, that is such a huge part of it. In Mythic Battles, you may have to discard an Art of War card, right? And that's a decision point. You know, do I want to discard this Art of War card and trade off my value of being able to activate a second unit or search my deck or whatever to do the special ability? But that's pretty much all you. When it comes to Limbo, it like steps it up to 11, right? Where it's like, do I want to give this resource to my opponent right now? Do I want them to be able to have that so they can in turn do something nasty to me? And you can look and see exactly what they can do and be like, I don't want that to happen, but I want to be able to use my thing too. And it adds a whole nother level. And so that's a huge thing in Limbo. So if you like that kind of, it's not really a push-pull mechanic so much as, again, it's that shared resource of there is only so much fate, and I use some and give it to you, and you use some and give it to me. Or maybe you don't use it and you starve the opponent and now they don't have it, but then of course you're not using it either. And now suddenly it's a game without all these special abilities. Or maybe you built an army that doesn't have a lot of those abilities, so you can just hoard it and he can spend it all he wants. I'm just going to keep it and not use it. I mean, there's a ton of stuff there for that once you interact with the other player. So that sets that apart for sure. If you want more than just Skirmish, Arena is your only option. Now, when it comes down to it, Mythic Battles Pantheon and Mythic Battles Ragnarok, you're always fighting another person. There is no AI. The AI, if they did one, would be kind of terrible, I imagine. It'd have to be a different game mode, which is what Arena did. Arena's not trying to mimic the Skirmish feel of it. In fact, it feels a lot more like a Dungeons and Dragons kind of dungeon romp or, dungeon crawl through, a vampire's fortress or whatever, right? There's a lot of story involved and all that. You're still doing the same kind of mechanics, but it has a totally different feel, especially with the AI and how they kind of handle that. So, and of course, Limbo has no such, not even a concept of a campaign. There is a little bit of campaign for Skirmish. So if you want a campaign, then that's Mythic Battles. So if you want a Skirmish campaign, because again, Arena's campaign does not play like a skirmish, doesn't feel like a skirmish. At no point do you feel like you're playing a skirmish game. You feel like you're playing a board game when you play the non-player versus player version of Arena. Mythic Battles actually has a skirmish where you're fighting the other person and you're doing an actual campaign where you're gaining units and you're leveling up and making veteran characters, or you get different items that you can equip with them that give them different abilities. So now they have the archer skill, or I just added some berserkers troops to my units. So next time I do that, and depending on who wins and who loses, you start out differently in the next one, and there's long form ones and short form ones. So there's actually kind of a lot there, and that's what Mythic Battles brings to that. Is it's not just straight up skirmish. There is definitely that skirmish feel and tabletop kind of units fighting each other thing, but with some campaign elements layered on top. Again, I didn't include hate because you can't really buy hate right now. Otherwise, hate would obviously take that crown by a long shot there. And if you like to paint minis, well, pick your poison. They're all great. Seriously, they make some great minis. Tenaris is using the exact same company that made these. So while the design is much different in that versus Limbo, I still like the Limbo one. Charles did these from CA Sculpts, and he does an amazing job at sculpting. So there's sculpt design, and then there's quality, right? So I think Limbo takes the cake. Probably followed by Ragnarok, actually, and then probably Arena last. So that's my personal take. But I'm not big on the more low fantasy, I guess not like the ridiculousness of design that you can get on some other things. That Arena's more D&D kind of oriented, which is fine and it's really cool, and there's some cool stuff there for sure. But anyway, I've seen a lot of dragons in my time too, so. But yeah, no, they're all great for painting. They all have amazing minis, and yeah, I mean that's really it. Hopefully that helped you out. Again, I mean they're all, I like them all. I have them all. I play them all. So there's definitely room to have some. But if you're wanting to maybe try and figure out what the core stuff is, whether it's, oh, you know what, it's an army building and shared resource sounds like my bread and butter, I'm going to wait for Limbo. Or maybe it's, you know what, that card play in Mythic Battles sounds amazing. Sign me up right now. Let's go hit some Ragnarok and some Mythic Battles Pantheon and spend a whole bunch of money and do all that. Or maybe it's, you know what, I would love a co-op campaign, you know, and being able to play that and then have Skirmish on the side and it'd be really good as well. Maybe Daenerys is that. So a lot of options there for you. Hopefully I helped you out a little bit. Didn't make it even worse for you. And honestly, if it's hard to decide, it might be something where you grab a core of each one. Maybe that's the answer, as opposed to getting all the add-ons for everything, right? The core of each game offers a ton. Limbo is almost all core. There's some add-ons, but they're actually quite minor. Mythic Battles has some great add-ons, but the core is such a huge selection. You would be just happy with that, whether it's Pantheon or Ragnarok or both. And then Arena has one of the best core pledges out there. Mythic Battles, I think, gives it a run for its money. At least the Pantheon version, I think, does. But Daenerys has a lot in its core pledge. So there's a lot there. And maybe that's your answer. I don't know. Let me know in the comments below if you have any questions, if you have any comments or concerns or anything like that. I'm here to help you guys out. I've played them all a lot, so I can kind of answer maybe any question you have on them. Hopefully I can help. Maybe I can't. I don't know. Either way, thanks so much for watching. As always, I appreciate you guys. Hopefully you found this video helpful. If you did, like the video, comment. That helps a lot. I appreciate it. And if you made it to this end of the video and you appreciate this effort that I put in here, there is a Patreon link down below. And with that, I'll let you guys go. Have a great rest of your day. Take care. Bye.